This week, Siskel and Ebert review Mel Gibson and Danny Glover busting smugglers in Lethal Weapon 2. Dennis Quaid is rock legend Jerry Lee Lewis in Great Balls of Fire. Plus, Andrew McCarthy and Jonathan Silverman cover up a murder while spending a wild weekend at Bernie's. It's all coming up next on Siskel and Ebert.
Open up.
How do I know it's the police?
After I shoot you through the door, you can examine the bullet. Open up.
Danny Glover and Mel Gibson are back on the police beat in Lethal Weapon 2. It's one of the big new summer movies we'll be reviewing this week on Siskel and Ebert. I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times. Our first movie is Lethal Weapon 2, and in a summer of sequels, which have often been pale imitations of the originals, this one is an exception to the rule. The original Lethal Weapon was one of the smartest and most exciting cop buddy action pictures of recent years, and Part 2 is as smart, as exciting, and just as well written. This is not a lazy retread, but a sincere effort to do justice to the original film, and it really worked for me. As usual, the movie is built around a lot of spectacular chase scenes. Movie chases usually bore me, but this movie has some good ones. That's Mel Gibson back again as a crazy cop named Riggs, and Danny Glover also returns as his partner Murtaugh. They're given the assignment of guarding a pipsqueak government witness played by Joe Pesci in a brilliant comic performance.
I know all those routines.
You Leo Getz?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, that's me, Leo Getz. Whatever you need, Leo Getz. You get it? I use that all the time to break the ice when I meet people. You know, it's good.
The villains in the movie are South African diplomats who are involved in some kind of drugs and gold scandal. Mel Gibson makes them his personal enemies.
Eeny, meeny, miny.
Hey, Mom!
One of the moments of danger and comedy comes after the bad guys booby-trap Glover's toilet seat.
1, 2.
Wait.
What?
Do we do it on 3 or do it 1, 2, 3, then do it?
Oh, it's your ass, Cochise. I mean, it's up to you.
My ass, yeah. 3.
With a lot of sequels, the filmmakers use all of their ideas in the first movie and then they just rip themselves off the second time around, but not this time. Lethal Weapon 2 was directed by Richard Donner, a talented action director who also made the earlier film as well as the original and best Superman movie. His writer this time is Jeffrey Boehm, and together they've kept the feel and charm of the original film, including the odd couple relationship between the middle-class Glover and the street-crazy Gibson. And then they've added some effective villains, and especially the brilliant comic relief of that fast-talking little government informer played by Joe Pesci. The movie is entertaining from one end to the other.
Not for me. I had sort of a split reaction to the picture. I liked all the things happening outside of the main characters. I think Joe Pesci is absolutely wonderful. You know, if comic roles are ever going to get Oscar nominations for supporting, at least, this I think would qualify. He's terrific. And I liked this woman, Patsy Kensit, who you didn't mention, who was the girlfriend, the love interest of Mel Gibson. I thought she was really erotic and kind of exciting, fresh face. She's a rock singer. But the two main guys bored me because they were doing a lot of this false laughter and false... I thought that the guys would be, in reality, much sharper than they were. I thought in the first film, Gibson's character was really suicidal, and that was part of his excitement, because it wasn't just a wild man, he was a wild man for a purpose. Here now, he's just sort of playing being a wild man.
If you remember, Gene, by the end of the first film, he had come back from that feeling.
I know what he's supposed to do.
He's still crazy now, but at least he's not depressed.
He wanted to kill himself, now he wants to live. I understand that.
Well, what's wrong with that? That's a good idea, isn't it?
There's nothing wrong with it.
No.
It just just the way it's
But they're
played.
still interesting guys who know each other and who like each other and who stick together and who save each other's lives in this movie.
Let me ask you something.
Especially in that scene where the booby-trap bomb is going to go off. It's very well played.
Let me ask you one thing. Do you know what I'm referring to when I say about the false conviviality of scenes like that?
I didn't feel it was false. I've seen a lot of movies this summer in which people didn't, nobody on the screen was as intelligent as everyone in the audience.
Yeah, right.
In this movie, it seemed to me the intelligence level was higher, and they they had a lot of interesting new situations, a lot of interesting setups, special effects here. They were not simply doing a pale retread.
Okay, it's not as bad as the Ghostbusters sequel or the Star Trek
Nowhere
sequel.
near as bad, no.
But I thought that the people around them were original. They themselves were not special.
Okay, even without being able to convert you, I'll just say this. If people want an action picture, instead of Ghostbusters or Star Trek
go see Batman.
or Batman, go see this one. It's a lot more fun.
All right, our next film. And our next movie is yet another sequel, Karate Kid 3. And my reaction was that this is pretty much what you would expect. Not special, just acceptable. Ralph Macchio and Pat Morita are once again karate student and teacher, as Macchio reluctantly ends up doing battle to defend his championship. The big symbol of Macchio's struggle is a perfect little bonsai tree that becomes part of a blackmail attempt to get Macchio to fight again. He'd rather lead a peaceful life with his girlfriend, but some bad guys are spoiling for a fight.
What's up? What do you give me? Hey, I already gave you the application. Come on. Yeah, the stakes just went up. Give me the tree.
Daniel, don't.
No! Shut up! All right, all right. Just hold us. Don't let go. Here. Now, please be careful with it. Please be careful.
And the bad guys break the tree, which breaks Macchio's spirit until the tree is mended by Pat Morita.
Hey, look at that. It's gonna make it, huh?
Hey, make it because have strong root. Just like you, Daniel-san.
The most interesting confrontation in the film is between Mr. Miyagi, Pat Morita, and a sleazy businessman with a ponytail and a mean karate kick, well played by Thomas Ian Griffith.
Come on, little man. Let's see how good you really are.
That Thomas Ian Griffith nearly saves the movie. He's a terrific villain, but I had a problem this time with Ralph Macchio's lead character of Daniel. Macchio plays him so relentlessly upbeat that the character loses the credibility of the first film. Pat Morita is fine, but then Macchio's girlfriend seems like a dunce. For everything that I liked about this picture, there was something I didn't like. Again, it's not a bad film, just not special enough for me to recommend.
Well, of course, the original Karate Kid was an excellent picture.
I think so.
Very entertaining, very intelligent. However, I've seen it, and I don't need to see it again. I don't need to see it a third time. There was nothing in this movie that is fresh or original.
Except the villain. You'll acknowledge that.
Oh, well, they have a new villain. They bring in
I thought that guy was pretty scary.
But they also had the same old villain, that guy that keeps running the bankrupt karate studio. He's back again. Gee, I'm back in business. Here I am again.
Yeah, a small role.
Here's another thing that bothers me. In all of these movies, Mr. Morita is the most interesting character.
Mr. Miyagi, yeah.
Mr. Miyagi.
Right.
He is so interesting, I can almost remember his name.
Yeah, I know.
He is a nonviolent person who has a Zen outlook on life and who believes that you turn things over and you don't rise to anger and so forth. Wouldn't it be fun just once if he were able to resolve the problem in one of these movies using his approach? Because the movies all end, they're directed by the man who directed the first Rocky, and they all end with a big fight, and Mr. Miyagi always essentially says, oh, you're right, my approach doesn't work, I'm going to beat the stuffing out of you, and that's the solution to the problem. And then after somebody is practically killed at the end of the film, then it's over. These movies pay lip service to nonviolence, and then they just turn into another blood feast.
That would be a twist. That would be another way to make the story fresh. I thought what you were going to say is that you would like to see the movie be not about the Karate Kid, but about the Karate adult. I would be interested in seeing him be the real center character.
Well, he has a scene in this movie where he does go in and he's able to defeat everyone, of course, there's superior karate, but how about, you know, really taking the nonviolence seriously?
That would be a nice change. You know what I'm referring to when I talk about him being so upbeat that it gets a little bit oppressive at times, this little guy?
One-note performance, yeah. Coming up next, Dennis Quaid plays rock and roll legend Jerry Lee Lewis in Great Balls of Fire.
Well, come on, baby, come on.
And Jerry Lee Lewis, who came out of Memphis in the late 1950s with hard-driving hits like A Whole Lot of Shaking Going On, Breathless, and Great Balls of Fire. He was billed as the next Elvis Presley, but that was before his life became filled with controversy, scandal, and tragedy. The movie mostly centers on the few years when things went mostly right for Jerry Lee, which happened after he discovered that his white version of black rhythm and blues would tame even a rowdy saloon crowd.
Well, let's shake it, baby, shake it. 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 Come on over. Oh, a lot of shaking going on.
Lewis has been married at least 5 times, but it was his third marriage to a 13-year-old cousin that plunged him into controversy right at the start of his stardom.
What are you doing around here?
Well, me and your daddy are putting together a band. I'm going to be the main attraction, of course. I've got a ferocious, God-given talent on it.
That's Winona Ryder as little Myra Gale Brown. She idolized him and was swept off her feet by his offer of marriage. Lewis and Myra go to England at the height of his success, but then the child bride scandal breaks.
You think your expulsion from England is a repudiation of rock and roll?
They canceled Jerry Lee's tour because of our marriage, not because of his music.
There's good music in this movie, all of it performed on the soundtrack by Jerry Lee Lewis himself. In fact, the credits at the end say, all vocals and piano by the killer himself. I enjoyed also in this movie the cocky way that Dennis Quaid played the killer, but Great Balls of Fire takes a biographical approach that could best be described as once over, very, very lightly. I never had any idea during this movie what Jerry Lee Lewis was really thinking, and I don't think the movie wanted me to. This is a film that takes a life that has been mired in drugs, alcohol, violence, and tragedy, and tries to find one little period of a couple of years that were sort of like the cliches of Hollywood musical biographies. And even then, the life is pretty seamy and depressing. Jerry Lee Lewis comes across in this movie as popularized, sanitized, and almost lobotomized. And even then, he seems to belong in a tragedy, not a musical comedy.
Well, at least the film communicated that much to you. It cannot be all sunshine and light. I mean, if you
not
see
in his life.
No. I mean, and the movie does it. I like the film, except for the ending, which I understand, reading press accounts, that was tacked on at the end, a more upbeat kind of ending. I think they ran out of gas. They show the two qualities that make him distinctive. Certainly the music above and beyond everything, and then this marriage to the second cousin twice removed, as she says. Mm-hmm. After that, they don't have any place to go in this story. I like, though, however, tremendously the way the music is performed and the way that the cutting is done by the editor working with director Jim McBride. Let the songs go on. I mean, this is a little innovation. Let the songs go on and then advance the story through the songs. It's a way of doing a different kind of movie musical, which I enjoyed and found very refreshing.
The musical scenes are entertaining in this movie, but if you start out with those songs by Jerry Lee Lewis, how could they not be? And you're right about the editing, and you're right about the imagination there. But who, and you're also right, or you would have been right if you'd said so, that Dennis Quaid does a good job
of
looking like and convincing us as Jerry Lee Lewis. But what was this man thinking? What is the real Jerry Lee like?
Well, I will tell you, I mean, he's obviously very cocky at that time, extremely cocky, and you know, superficial. Yeah. I mean, you'd have to be thoughtless not to realize...
He doesn't have a brain in his head. Let's call a spade a spade.
All right, that's probably accurate.
Yeah.
So what? I mean, that's interesting.
Was that what you wanted in a movie? Don't you feel there's got to be more to this man? There has to be.
Oh, I think later on, I think in retrospect there probably is. That isn't the movie that they made. There is no third act here. They have the two things, the music, the scandal, and nothing else.
In his life, there were third, fourth, and fifth acts.
Well, I don't think they had the courage. They didn't have the courage to deal with that. I agree with you, but I still was entertained tremendously by most of the picture. Okay. Coming up next, Weekend at Bernie's with two young insurance men having a blast, toning around a corpse.
Why is everybody waving at us? I'm popular. I see.
Bernie, going off again?
Weekend at Bernie's, a preposterous, unfunny comedy that comes across like a bad version of a slapstick Blake Edwards film. Andrew McCarthy and Jonathan Silverman play two young insurance men who discover that someone is cheating their company, and it turns out the someone is the boss, named Bernie. He tries to distract the boys by inviting them to a fabulous weekend at his equally fabulous home.
There are women swimming, boating, famous people. Well?
What to? When Bernie is fatally poisoned by mobsters during the weekend, the boys, not knowing what's happened, try to cover up the death by pretending that Bernie is still alive. And the party guests are too drunk to notice.
Ah, feels good, eh, Bert? You're really loose. Never seen you this relaxed before. Keep it up, huh? I gotta go. Duty calls. Hey, babe. Hey, Pop.
Hi, Bernie. Doesn't anyone realize he's dead?
Much of the humor involves the boys dragging around Bernie's body.
Hey, oh! Okay. You taking that? I'll get the car.
Of course, many movies have scenes involving the attempt to hide a corpse, but you have to be very clever to make a movie where that is the whole movie itself. Alfred Hitchcock was mostly successful in The Trouble with Harry, but the director of Weekend at Bernie's, Ted Kotcheff, is no Hitchcock. The boys are not appealing, and Bernie literally becomes a drag. I couldn't wait for this to end.
I agree with you, Gene. I didn't find it funny, and I found it less and less funny as it went along, and as poor Bernie was dragged around. And what happens in movies like this, especially movies where the dead body is on camera for long scenes in the middle of dialogue, is I go onto a different track altogether.
I know what
keep
you're
trying to spot the actor breathing.
Exactly. I was watching his eyes.
Little finger or not.
Watch his eyes.
Well, this is fatal to comedy, because comedy has to do with characters, not with little fake acting like that. And so that was a distraction. But apart from that, it was a bad idea, and it didn't work. I mean, I guess you give them points for trying, but it's just not funny.
I don't give them points for trying because nobody tried with the boys. I mean, they were just, you know, rejects from a beach blanket movie.
They did not emerge as interesting characters. They weren't given interesting quirks of personality.
Nothing.
And
there wasn't any writing in those people.
Right.
When we come back, an angry film inspired by the recent financial scandals in Japan. It's called A Taxing Woman's Return.
Our next movie is named A Taxing Woman's Return, and it's a Japanese film that seems to have been directly inspired by the recent headlines out of Tokyo about financial corruption in high places. It's a sequel to the 1987 film A Taxing Woman, and once again the star is Nobuko Miyamoto playing a government tax inspector who cannot be stopped in her determination to track down tax cheats. Here she shares some of her inside dope with a colleague.
このラブホテルな、このナイトクラブ、このソープランドとあちらのパチンコ屋、みんな鬼沢が影のオーナーだ。表のオーナーは誰ですか？ダミー会社さ、ダミーを使って売り上げを3割ぐらい向かせてるんだよ。
The plot they uncover this time involves a widespread, enormous tax fraud and a phony church, which is used as a front to conceal the illegal profits. First, we see some of the backstage maneuverings at the church.
で、どうしたって言うんだ。サラ金に追われて一家心中寸前だ。お願いです。500万。今日中に500万。それで死なずに済むんです。お願いです。必ずお返しいたします。返すためには何でもいたします。
And then the heroine and her colleagues attempt to raid the illegal tax front.
ダメです。入らないでください。
If you recognize Nobuko Miyamoto there, it may be from the enormously successful 1986 film Tampopo, in which she played a woman who is obsessed with opening a perfect noodle restaurant. That was a good movie. Since then, her down-to-earth pluck and determination have made her one of Japan's top stars, and she's always directed by her husband, Juzo Atami. In this film, they're fearlessly critical of what they see as widespread corruption in high places in Japan, and a lot of the situations seem to come right out of the front pages of today's papers. One of the villains, for example, is a high-ranking senator. I thought the film was probably too long and it was needlessly confusing at times, but for its energy and its anger and for the alternate view it provides of modern Japan, I give it a thumbs up.
And I give it a thumbs up for its entertainment value. It's very hard to make an entertaining picture about political and financial scandals, and I thought they did a very good job. She's on the lookout for as tax cheat, but what they do is take the story away from her more than the first film and really show the many, many levels of corruption as people try and make money off of Japan's most precious commodity, which is land. There isn't enough land, so the prices keep escalating, and they keep getting loans and selling this stuff and evicting people and all that, and you end up with two classes. I thought it was a really good film.
There are some interesting sequences in here. For example, the way they try to drive the tenants out of a building that they want to empty by playing enormous stereo speakers at them through the walls and through the floor.
Yeah, I like
another
that.
scene involving the corrupt leader, the ringleader of this entire group, a very cynical and tired-looking man who has secrets within secrets within secrets. This is good.
I thought it was very richly drawn characters. Yeah, maybe it's a little too long, but I don't know if it's long for the audience that it was intended for the Japanese audience. I enjoyed the picture. I think she's a terrific kind of hero, a different kind of hero than you might normally get. Now let's recap our reactions to the movies on this show. We had a disagreement about Lethal Weapon 2. Roger thought it was an exceptionally well-made sequel. I enjoyed the fresh supporting characters more than the familiar leads. 2 thumbs down for The Karate Kid Part 3, with more of the same nonviolent story with a violent conclusion. A split vote on Great Balls of Fire. It wasn't a substantial enough biography for Roger. However, I was entertained by the musical sequences and by Dennis Quaid's performance. 2 downturned thumbs for The Dim-Witted Weekend at Bernie's, and 2 thumbs up for A Taxing Woman's Return, a most entertaining investigation of financial corruption in contemporary Japan. So I'm saying that I did like Great Balls of Fire, except for the ending of the picture.
I think the problem with Great Balls of Fire was that they had a person whose life wouldn't fit into the kind of movie they were trying to make, and they never quite got the right fit.
The only thing that I'm disappointed with, because I enjoyed the music so much, is that they chickened out with the ending of that picture.
Well, but the other movie I want to talk about is Lethal Weapon 2. I think you're really missing the boat there. It's a terrific summer entertainment. I enjoyed it. I thought it was smart. It was fun. Just
to see, I had a good time with Joe Pesci's performance, and really only that.
Okay, that's it for this week. Next week we'll be back with reviews of 5 more new summer movies, including When Harry Met Sally, starring Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan, and License to Kill, the new James Bond adventure starring Timothy Dalton. That's next week, and until then, the balcony is closed.
Thinning hair? Make it fuller, thicker, healthier looking with Vivagen Thinning Hair Enrichment Program. Shampoo and treatment from Redken. Raisinets and Goobers are playing everywhere, starring plump, juicy raisins and great golden peanuts. Both now feature creamy Nestle milk chocolate. Tap and SureCook Space Saver Microwave is perfect for kitchens where space is at a premium. Tap and Touch solid state controls and automatic temperature probe furnished by Tappan. Travel Savers, the nation's leading chain of independent travel agencies. Consult your yellow pages for the Travel Savers agency nearest you. Ask for our specially priced cruises. Travel Savers.